the work of all the partners that work with me in a European project called Roorkee, where we have a community of members, mainly from Europe, but also, so as I said, I will start by introducing the Soil Carbon International Research Consortium that I'm leading. So it supports the Paris Agreement and the objectives of the 4 initiative that I mentioned in my introduction. It is an international research consortium that is prepared by the Biochar project I mentioned, which is funded by Horizon Europe. Well, Horizon Europe and apparently India is an associated partner, so for a future project we could imagine working with India as well on that topic. The objective is really to raise awareness and science-based knowledge on soil carbon that will benefit international research cooperation and worldwide stakeholders. As was mentioned also, it's not just for research, but end users and farmers and industries are also very important and at the heart of using all the research that we are developing. And we want to ensure that all type of land use can contribute to climate change mitigation and adaptation while improving soil health. So this is not a topic for today, but well, we mentioned already forest soils that are important, but also, sorry, I can't remember anyway, other types of soils are also at stake, even soils in cities. This is also a topic that is being developed by some countries. So what we want to do is really give access to research outputs through an online knowledge portal, which I will briefly present. And just to show you that we have gathered a really large international community, and we are together working on those standards that were mentioned. But what we want to do is to work on those standards with an international community of researchers. So we are developing a framework for MRV, so monitoring, reporting, and verification methodologies within our project, and I'll talk about that a bit later. So it was officially launched in Madrid during the soil mission of the European Commission Week, and it has already 110 signatories from 46 countries. This is the different representatives. So we have individual researchers, but we also have a lot of official research institution or academic institution that are part of the research college. As you can see, we also have a funder college, because this is also an important topic, and a number of an end user college. And as you see, VERA, which is one of the certification institution, has already signed the letter of intent with us. We are based in Europe at the moment, but we are international, and this is why we have a number of ambassadors in our regional nodes. So as you can see on this picture, we are working with the US and Canada through Colorado State University, and you can see the picture of Amy Swan from Symposium group. We are working with Brazil. Brazil was mentioned by my colleague from CIRAD. So we are working with Embrapa, and later on I will explain that we are organizing an international symposium on soil carbon research end of June this year, in Vietnam this year, working with colleagues from Cambodia, Thailand and Laos, at SFI in Hanoi with Tran Dien, our colleague. What we are developing in that European project for that large international research consortium are three main services. So, as I said, an internationally harmonized monitoring, reporting and verification framework, so that we can work together for different contexts of application and help policymakers who were defining also some standards to work on scientifically proven and internationally on an international consensus on some of the topics. We have developed an online platform called Impactful Soil, so you have the link, it's quite easy to access. And we are also working on a strategic research and innovation agenda together with a number of funding agencies, so that later on the International Research Consortium can help launch some calls for common research. So each funding agency could fund in its own country a number of projects, and there could be an add-on so that they could exchange on the same topics with other countries and facilitate exchange and knowledge sharing. So if I go now on, if I take a focus on the platform that we have developed and on Biochar, as I said, there are different practices that may increase soil carbon stocks, cover crops, edges, agroforestry, and Biochar is also doing that. If you look, for us, the interesting properties for soil improvement are the fact that you can produce Biochar from various types of biomass that sometimes are not used at the moment. That there is a stability, so we've been talking about the length of the stability of biochar and of carbon in the soil. The fact that there is a porous surface that can help also nutrients and water, that was mentioned already by Sonal, and it can help also soil health improvement because of its importance related to soil microbiology that can help promote so all these topics will be further elaborated in Chloe's presentation. Chloe is in the room and she will talk in 2 days, I think. So if we go on the platform we've developed, so this is the entrance page. So we have different modules, geographical, geospatial data, scientific evidence, practices, network, and data sets. If we go to the practice part, then you can see that on the platform we have already collected a number of practices that have been described in some scientific publication. So we have 2 sources mainly used. The Roorkee platform, which is a well-known agroecology platform where they work on different practices, and also the FAO, so the United Nations Organization for Food and Agriculture in Rome. They also have developed through their large soil program a number of identified practices that can help increase soil carbon. And you can see that in India there are a number of examples. That's where you can see it. So I will not go into the details, but we already have some information on those, the description of practices of use of biochar for soil, for increasing soil carbon stocks. If I go now to scientific evidence parts, so the scientific evidence page of our portal is dedicated to, we have collected all the publications that were available dealing with soil carbon sequestration. And through that, and through some artificial intelligence way, we have selected a number of scientific papers that are applicable in different contexts, so forest soil, croplands, and so on. If you look at croplands, And if you look at a number of practices, and especially those related to biochar, then you have a number of papers that are available. And if you look, there are a lot of publications in India on the topic, and it has increased in the recent years. So this is just to show you that this is an important topic. So maybe within that platform you may find some of your publications. So if I go now to the other part of the presentation concerning standards and policies, I will focus on what has been determined at the European level. So at French level, for quite a number of years, in fact, the French, what is called Label Bas Carbone, which is the certification framework for France for voluntary carbon markets, that certification framework has at the moment no application on biochar. But since 3 years now, Europe is really wanting to define a European certification of not just biochar, but of carbon removals. This is called a Carbon Removal Certification Framework. So this is CRCF. So how does the certification work? Well, the EU wants to define a framework on which individuals or groups can submit their certification process to that framework, and they have to respond to a number of criteria, which are the good quantification, the additionality, so the fact that you are doing, that the practice that you are mentioning for which you want to have the carbon credits is doing better than what is made usually, the liability of that, and the sustainability. And the Commission will establish certification methodologies in consultation with an expert group. So that part, the blue part, is nearly finished. And now they are working on the part of the certification process. So in fact, public and private certification schemes can be now recognized by the Commission, so they have to come with a number of documents that will be independently approved by the EU, so that the certification process is really in line with that CRCF regulation. And then there will be independent certification bodies that will issue some audit reports, some certificate of compliance, and, well, group audits are also possible. And then later on, Europe is trying to put in place some certification registries and new union-wide CRCF registry that will come after 2028. And this will give access to a public information for everyone to see the certificate of compliance audit report. So the view of the Commission is to make something really transparent for all the participants. Now, what I want to the point that I really want to stress, and that was also somehow mentioned this morning, is that within that carbon removal and carbon farming regulation, biochar enters in the 3 main categories. So it is considered as a permanent carbon removal. You can see BAX, DAX, and biochar. So it is within that category. But it is also within the carbon farming category as helping the carbon sequestration in soils. And it can also be considered in the 3rd category, which is carbon storage in products. We've been talking about usage of biochar also in buildings and so on. So this is also important. And from what I know, it's the only thing that can enter in those three categories. So I think it is quite important. So there is an expert group that worked on the topic and defined those quality criterions that should apply when anyone would like to apply for a certification from that CRCF, and that is important. Now, if I come to the context of application, we've been talking about carbon markets, but in fact, this has there are many contexts of application. Well, in any country, that there could be a policy that would like to have that kind of measurement. And it also comes on the market, on the carbon market, through offsetting when you sell carbon credits, or through insetting. So I will give two examples of insetting and offsetting. Here I take the example of insetting. If you look at what farmers do, they're producing a number of food that goes to buyers, that goes to food processing company, retailers, and less to the consumers. Well, at the moment, a lot of food companies are really working together with farmers from whom they source their products, and they are paying them, for instance, to apply cover crops. And then, so they are paying the farmers, and the farmers, well, they bring them, they help them, those food companies, to reduce their Scope 3 emissions, which is quite important for those companies. I can give you some examples of that. That goes from farmers to consumers, in fact. There is a company in the southwest of France called Nathalie. They are producing maize for popcorn, and they are the leader in Europe for popcorn production. So they are a food processing company, and they work for many years now with farmers, paying them initially just to implement cover crops. If they implemented cover crops, they were paid for that, an extra money. Now, based on MRV systems developed by some labs in France, they are paying them for the number of tons of carbons that are really sequestered in the soil. And then in the end, in fact, they have a label, and they are trying to have the consumer being sensible to the fact that they are producing a natural popcorn which is helping the environment. So you can see there are different insetting possibilities. So this is another one. So the food company can, give advice, give remuneration to farmers directly, and then get the benefit of that can be calculated as a carbon credit, and they can sell it to other companies. That's also something possible. Then when it comes to offsetting, well, there are some aggregators that do work with farmers, helping them change their practices and doing all that measuring, reporting, and verification work, aggregating those carbon credits, and then selling those carbon credits on the market to companies. And Chloe just mentioned an example, inform policymakers in Europe, and this is why we held a policy workshop on monitoring, reporting, and verification in Brussels with, we had Christian Holzleitner, who is in charge of that carbon removal certification framework for Europe. He participated. We had someone from the Soil Mission, and we had a representative from the US and from the Pacific and Australia, presenting what is in place in those countries and taking into account both public and private schemes. And we are trying to produce a policy brief that will also be published soon, just to inform you. Europe also, through that CRCF, is organizing common farming summits. We participating to we participated to the first one last year, and there is another one in Dublin, Ireland, early March, where we are participating too, and where we take into account those practices for land managers, and what are the feedbacks from the field, what are the practices that really are in place, what are the rewarding mechanisms that I just mentioned before for impactful actions. So how can we avoid the barriers to common farming projects in agriculture financing? And what are the point of views of farmers, policymakers, and companies on those rewarding mechanisms? One of the key questions, and probably it is also the same for Biochar, is the definition of the baseline. So what is, when I said additionality, you have to do better than the baseline. So how do you calculate that baseline? Is it regional? Is it local? Is it national? This is also a very hot topic at the moment. As I mentioned also briefly, we are organizing a soil carbon research symposium, and I had a meeting yesterday online with the local organizers from Embrapa and in Rio, and I suggested that we add a session on biochar so that this topic can be taken into account, especially since a number of companies are developing a lot of biochar facilities in Brazil. So this is something that we will add to the scientific program, and I will come back to them with the feedback from the seminar here. So thank you very much, because it will help me continue on that. So as a conclusion, I just want to stress the fact that biochar is a promising solution for increasing and protecting soil carbon, while supporting biodiversity and food security, but we need collaborative effort between the soil carbon RC and the research community as a whole to implement effective economic models and verification models to show that biochar can play a significant role in climate change mitigation strategy. Thank you for your attention.
Positive basis.
Into account carbon sequestration, but also the emission of the emission factors of greenhouse gas through the application or the work that has been done at farm level. We're not we're not taking a life cycle analysis approach. It is more how to measure really the increase of soil carbon stocks. So in fact, there is a framework that was published a few years ago by Pete Smith and a group of scientists that taking into account that you need to have physical soil measurements, long-term experiments, but also, and I didn't mention it, but this is key, satellite data, and those flux tower data and so on, so that we have a global view of those emissions and of that storage. But we don't take into account the life cycle analysis of the
planetary boundaries.
Yeah.
Because the direct impact of the carbon dioxide in the environment release and its impact to the 5 elements of the earth. If we don't consider that the long-term impact of the CO2 is very challenging, that situation in this part of this country, Himalayan region, is completely different from the South Indian part of the same process or the same feedstock. How we calculate, how we measure, what are the indicators or the benchmarking to measure those things. At a micro level, to estimate that will be very challenging. I can discuss our research on the planetary boundaries, how that will impact.
I totally agree with you that we should take into account the global systems. And what comes back, and you know, it was mentioned by Sonal, the fact that you can reduce water, that you can, you know, not export too much fertilizer or that can be used by the plant, that you don't export that too much. So, and the question also of the biomass, how do you use it? If you use it for one purpose, you can't use it anymore for another purpose. So that type of thing is really important. But what is at stake at the moment is that there has been so many confusing messages from the voluntary carbon markets, from what has been done with RED Plus and so on, that what Europe wants to do is really start something quite scientifically proven, and, you know, not raise too much expectations on voluntary carbon markets. And the fact, if I showed the different types of context of application, it is also because it's not just paying for carbon, it's also changing globally and helping the transition of agriculture to a more sustainable agriculture that uses less you know, fertilizers and so on, but uses the natural system of biomass capturing CO2 in the atmosphere.
Long live India and France friendship.